I used to think that it was not okay to be nerdy and geeky and a little bit off kilter, I suppose would be the best way of describing it. And today I'm at that point where I've learned that it's fine for me to be me in that regard. And I'm going to take you back to growing up in Visalia, California, and the International Farm Equipment Show in Tulare, where my dad took me to the show. And one of the things that captivated me, and I was probably in the second grade or maybe even the third grade. Well, no, I take that back. It was probably fourth or fifth grade. Oh, by the way, Mr. Osborne in fourth grade. Wow. That's a story all into itself. And it will probably not be making life lessons learned by Tim Unscripted. I was a difficult child, to say the least. So getting back to the International Farm Equipment. So my dad and I, we developed this pattern in early February of him taking a day off of work and, me taking a day off of school. And we, as father and son, would go and visit the International Farm Equipment Show. And I think we did this for probably 2 or 3 years in a row between elementary school and middle school. And it was a magical place. And what I want to give you a little bit of behind the curtains look was that, at the time, really Central California, which encompasses, basically Sacramento, kind of south to Bakersfield, was considered the breadbasket of California. A lot of agriculture, tons of agriculture. Our life, in a sense, was deeply influenced by farming, regardless of whatever the profession was in a given city. Farming was really central to work and to life and to just the ethos at the time while I was growing up. And so the International Farm Equipment Show was a big deal because it brought all of the equipment manufacturers and, supporting companies in that space, in the agricultural space, ag tech. Ag tech wasn't even a thing at the time, really. I mean, I'm sure it was, but I never heard the term, used at that point. So we're going into this exhibit tent. And of course, I've seen all the big tractors and the earth moving machines. And it was just, for a boy at my age, it was magical. I'll leave it at that. So we get into this exhibit tent and there was a technology display. And in that display was one of the early Apple Macintoshes. I mean, like early, with a black and white graphical user interface. It was cute. It was accessible. It was relatable. And to be honest with you, it hooked me. I was using the wired mouse and I was moving the pointer around the screen and I was clicking and I was opening up applications. Oh, by the way, absolutely, by today's standard, this looks archaic. And I'm sure there's videos out there so you can do your own research of what the interface looked like. It was the best that could be done with technology at the time. And of course, we're light years. I mean, it's not even night and day. It's just like eras of difference between what we use today on our normal day-to-day basis as far as computer technology is concerned versus what was back then in the 80s and early 90s. By the way, I mean, 1980s and 1990s. I know this because we have young adult daughters. Oh, 1880s, Dad, 1890. No, I am not that old. So anyway, back on topic. So this experience, this moment of connection with this Apple Macintosh, and it was Mac 2E or 2C or whatever it was. That was it. That was what drew me into the technology space. That was really what planted the seed at the time that ultimately grew into what has now become a career in information technology. And it was just the thing I needed at the time. And, there's the video out there that I talk about being bullied. through school. It hasn't come full circle until recently. And probably I would say by recently, just in the last, I don't know, 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, maybe 15 years, where it's like, I'm okay being nerdy. I'm okay being geeky. I'm okay being, awkward in a sense, and being fixated on technology, and just having that be the center of so much of what I do. You know, I'm okay with that finally. And it's getting comfortable with being an outlier in culture is a tough road for any of us to hoe. And I know that there's theater kids, and I know that there's music kids, and I know that there's, the history folks, and there's the language folks, and, there's any number of subdivisions that we want to put ourselves in, whether that be us organizing ourselves or somebody else organizing us, just so that we can understand how to relate to one another and what kind of conversations we might have, fluid conversations that just move and can be done for hours versus those awkward and, jerky conversations that occur when there isn't a match. Getting comfortable in my skin has been one of the better things that I figured out over the course of many years, and I'm still not completely there yet. I have to work at it as much as you probably have to work at that as well. And call it finding your niche, call it finding your tribe, call it whatever you want. It's a wonderful thing when you do recognize that, hey, this is the thing that energizes me and helps me wake up in the morning and get going. I mean, another great example of this is our youngest daughter. Our youngest daughter has been fascinated by stones and rocks and minerals, and for years. She has this wonderful collection of semi-precious stones and rock formations and stuff. I mean, she genuinely loves geology in this sense. But more important, she also loves gemology. And she's figured it out. This is what she's passionate about. Now, it may change over the course of time and she may shift her focus, but this is what makes her happy. And she can bring benefit to humanity through this passion, through this desire to understand the formation of whatever, and that's great. And I wish that more of us could do that. I mean, I didn't really kind of land on this thing until I was like at the tail end of my time on active duty, trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I went back to college and looking at economics, meaning if I study English, how much pay can I expect to earn doing work in English? And I went, ooh, wow, I made more money in the Navy as an enlisted person as an E5. It's not going to work because I still have a house payment and I've got an automobile payment. And then I went, well, maybe journalism. And then I did the math, did my research, did my homework, which was really tough at the time. There was no Google. I couldn't lean on Google. There was no Perplexity, my favorite tool for researching now. And so it was like, well, journalism is not a high-paying field either. Well, I have this affinity for technology, and I was pretty good at learning this stuff in the Navy. I wonder what that might look like. And that was it. That was it. I came kind of full circle from this elementary school experience with this Apple Macintosh at the International Farmer Equipment Show in Tulare, California, to Jacksonville, Florida, looking at what my college education was going to be and connecting these two dots and going, I liked this whole technology thing years ago. Maybe this is the direction that I should go professionally. And there it was. And I've built a career around it. And it's just been recently where I've finally embraced the fact that I fall into a certain category of folks that we're all passionate about technology, information technology in particular. And so we have a certain bend to our personalities. Not right, not wrong, just different. And something I used to say to our daughters growing up: not right, not wrong, just different. And so being able to embrace that, this, whatever we want to call it, passion, fixation, I don't know, obsession. I hope it's not an obsession. Although, I do say from time to time with this whole generative artificial intelligence thing, it's kind of become an obsession for me, not to the expense of my family and, spending time. I see it as a tool. I think that hopefully is evident. So I'm saying it definitively for the public now. I see generative artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence in general as a tool, not to be obsessed over, but to be used for the benefit of humanity. So getting back to the whole point of this video, which is really being comfortable with your thing and being willing to embrace that and understand that people may not understand why it is that you are this way and why you're so dialed into it. It's okay to be unique and different. Not a single one of us is the same as another human being. And that's a great joy. And life would be pretty boring. In fact, the world would be a pretty boring place if we were all the same, if we all had the same interests. So embrace your goofiness, your geekiness, your nerdiness, your whatever, you want to call it. That's the life lesson learned. And that's another episode brought to you by Tim Unscripted.